Sports, OTB reporter Aisling O'Reilly was at the launch of the 2022 League of Ireland season for us last week and caught up with a number of players and managers. Here they are on the one thing that they would change about the League of Ireland.
Change anything about the League of Ireland, what would it be and why?
Probably going to say the referees here. No, I can't say the referees. One thing to change about the League of Ireland, probably a couple of the grounds not up to standard really. So yeah, maybe to improve the infrastructure of the league would be a good starting point.
Maybe better pay for the players. Probably something that the PFAI have looked at in the most previous years, and I know it is improving, but yeah, it'd be great to get it more full-time.
Some few of the away dressing rooms probably, including our own, in fairness, and there is something being done about that, but that's probably it. Yeah, look, you'd always be looking to improve on that.
Probably the contracts of a lot of teams, because to have a stable team, you need kind of longer term contracts, where a lot of clubs in the League of Ireland do a year-to-year basis, where it doesn't have that stability, where you see kind of the likes of Shamrock Rovers can throw out 3-4 year deal contracts where there's more stability in the core in that team, and that's what it takes to be successful as them. So you want that in your team to have, going in every year and having the same base of players there and just adding a couple to it rather than changing 10 and 11 players every season.
It'd be perception around our league, a perception around all that. We need to change that and make it more vibrant, in that you only have to look now how many kids have gone to Britain over recent weeks. We're getting more kids into the league. We want to get more kids into the league. We want to get more young players that can, but we need to get the league more professional, and there's perception around all of that. It is a good league. It's a tough league. It's well supported. We want it better supported. Well funded. We want it better funded. We need sponsorship. We need all that. We just need to get that better. And I would just like the perception around our league. I'd like more people to be involved.
Longer contracts, what? No, I think just player stability, you know what I mean, giving lads more. And it is changing to an extent, but still think it can get better.
It's a lot to choose from, but I would say probably stadiums. A lot of the grounds need work if we're going to entice new fans and make it a more appealing.
We're going to have more from the League of Ireland launch coming your way over the course of the week. Nathan, do you want to tell us about your new Friday night LOI show on OTB?
Yeah, late night, League of Ireland. You can get it, Ger, 10 o'clock.
Is it NSFW?
Well, depends. I wouldn't have the kids tuning in.
And so where's this broadcast?
So this is live on Twitter Spaces.
What's the Twitter Space?
We're down with the kids. It's a little button you click on Twitter, Ger, that it'll appear. If you follow Off the Ball, you will see it appear
teleports
on the top
you to space. Is that it?
Exactly. So if you're online at 10 o'clock, between 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock on Friday night, and you go onto the Off the Ball Twitter account, you'll see up the top, Late Night League of Ireland. Click on that. You can listen in. It's sort of a traditional football phone-in, which has sort of been lost down through the years because of Twitter. So myself, Johnny Ward and Shane Keegan will be on, but anybody can take part. So there's a button saying, I want to talk. You click on that. We'll see that you want to have something to say for yourself, and we can decide whether or not to let you in. We're not letting anybody in who doesn't have their real name up on it, because we do want to protect the integrity of the conversation that is being had. But we trialled it last Friday night, and we had a great response. We had hundreds of people listening, and it's sort of aimed at that crew who are heading home after the match or angry about the various things that we just heard there. And it's fascinating listening to what's the one thing you would change, and it just shows up the issues for the FAI, that there's about 10 things that all feel like absolute necessities if the League of Ireland is to kick on and get to where it wants to be, from referees, from proper contracts for players. It's all right saying you're full-time, but are you paying players a livable wage if they're full-time professionals? Getting contracts so the players have the security, but also the clubs have the security, so that if a player leaves, they get rightly the reward for that, and that they're getting a proper fee from players. Facilities was touched on there. It's clearly an issue still, the length and breadth of the country. I'd like to see more games on TV. I think access to the League of Ireland is a huge problem for an awful lot of people. I know, growing up in Mayo as a massive football fan, that there was no League of Ireland. We would go to Galway on an irregular basis, but you never really felt a part of it. And for an awful lot of people, look at the Premier Division this year. Tala is the most southerly stadium in the League of Ireland Premier Division this year. There's huge chunks that aren't going to see Premier Division football, that will see some League of Division 1 football, but for an awful lot of people, you've got to travel a long, long way. And
maybe the third tier will address some of that. Like
perhaps, but again, they can't fill a second tier at the moment, and now you're talking about filling a third tier. And is that third tier going to be part-time, amateur? Again, what is full-time? What is part-time? What is amateur? Because quite often they're almost the exact same. You're a part-time team, but you train in the morning, so players can't go and get a job, or you train at different times of the week. So it's a very difficult situation 18, 19, 20-year-olds find themselves in.
Yeah.
If you're in college, are the links there with the colleges? So there's a lot to go. But I do think one of the issues is that there's just not enough games on the TV. 15 games. Obviously, Air Sport not being around anymore is a big blow. But still, Air Sport was somewhat niche. But for the national broadcaster to only have 15 matches on, sort of split up across the season, so you can't get into a rhythm of what's a title race, who are the personalities, how's Jack Byrne playing, I've no idea. And it's not necessarily an RTE thing. It's that the FAI just don't have any bargaining chip to say you got to show these games. So I'm excited about it.
It is an RTE thing. It is an RTE thing. They've decided to prioritise that they're going to put money behind other sports as opposed to putting money behind domestic football.
Well, they have, but I would assume that, and the obvious example would be that the amount of club football or club GEA games that are being shown. But the GEA, I assume, there have had a very strong hand to say, well, if you're going to show the absolute peak, the inter-county game, you're also going to show this amount of games.
Well, they picked up the existing deals. They picked up, just for clarification here, they picked up the old Air Sports deals that Air Sport would have had when Air Sport decided they were getting out of sports. RTE did a deal to take those in that current rights package, which was due to end this year, but which may end up rolling over to next year. So they will say that they got the league games on Saturday night, and part of that package is also getting those club games. And so, to get the league games, they had to show the club games, which I suppose is the point you're making.
That some of those games. Well, I just think there's a bigger debate, but I think it's insanity the amount of club games that were shown in the GEA this year in comparison to a professional league. That there is, some of these players are going to be in and around the Ireland squad this year. Like, the standard is good. It's incredibly insulting. I don't think you can put club GEA players on the same level as League of Ireland Premier Division players in terms of the level they are at. Like, this is not that far off several of these players being around the Ireland international squad. They deserve to be shown on TV. But there's obviously legacy issues there. I know Declan McBennett was talking last year about viewing figures. But again, one leads to the other. It's very hard to get viewing figures when do you know if there's a game on at 7 o'clock on a Friday night? Yeah, there's one this week. There might be one the week after. You mightn't see another one then for a month. Then you might get a couple of games. Are you watching Rovers? Are you watching Shells? There's League of Ireland TV there if you want to follow your own team. But maybe the Friday nights don't work. I know this will be very divisive in League of Ireland circles. Like, if there's still a TV ban in England, maybe 3 o'clock on a Saturday. Could you have that every single Saturday? You'd take away something of the Friday night feeling. But yeah, I think they need to find a way. They need to find another broadcaster. I'm surprised maybe TG Cahir haven't come in, considering the brilliant coverage they give of so many sports, to add another 15 on top of that. And suddenly you've got a game a week, and even a game a week, transform it. A proper highlight show at a reasonable time. But the numbers have never stacked up.
Yeah, like on those numbers. So what were we saying that the club GA were getting on RTE recently? It was about 200,000 was a peak, maybe, I want to say. So just like, this is just literally just a quick Google, and obviously the night of the Jordan Flowers goal against Dundalk, so that was, I guess, probably, it's actually probably a good comparison. It was the last time things were normal, and with full stadiums near the start of a season. That game peaked at 90,000 just after the goal, averaged out of 59,600 on RTE, because that game was obviously on TV that night. So that's what the League of Ireland is getting, and I would suggest that the club GA is getting in and around double that.
It's hard to know. It's hard to like, there are different figures. Everything, the audience figures for TV can be, this amount of people tune into this broadcast at some point, and it's like for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, like, what was that? So Donegal Boyle's reporting back in 2020, the figures were 61,000.
Right.
But we were told that was good because that was like 8% or 10% of the available audience. So I don't know.
Like, I mean, like, you would have thought that if a game is peaking at 90,000 people, that should be enough to wash its face. And like, I mean, it shouldn't need that. Like,
it also depends. So the taxpayer funds this organisation. Is it them an organisation that is supposed to help grow the sports or not? Like, do we believe in, is it public service to show that, or is public service actually, then that means you have to show the basketball, and you've got to show the athletics, and you've got to have reporters at every single bun fight? I think we have strayed off into what is the whole point of public service broadcasting here, while they're also taking ads and sponsorship. Like, you know, it's certainly an interesting debate, and I'd be interested to hear from the League of Ireland community what they think of how well or otherwise their sport is covered.
Like, it does seem, and I'm reading just from a Gavin Cooney piece here, that Declan McBennett sees an audience of at least 100,000 people as a success. So that's the threshold that he's looking to hit at the moment. But as you say, like, it shouldn't come back to that, or it shouldn't be solely dependent on that. And also, as I think you made that point just there, Nathan, is that, like, you've got to start somewhere. And it does feel that we're constantly talking about where does it start, even though this league is generations old. We're still talking around it as if, like, television's just been invented, as if, like, we're just trying to find a new first step into the new generation.
Well, we are. Look at the way the Premier League is covered. So we'll probably watch anything, as was proven over the last couple of years when every game was on TV. But Sky pick Liverpool, Manchester City, Manchester United every week. So you can see them, you can talk about them, you've got a good knowledge of them. If you had Rovers, Shells, Pats, Dundalk on almost a rotation, that you're seeing them every second, third week, suddenly you know the players, suddenly you understand and have expectations around form, around tactics, around how teams play. You can have a debate about it. It brings you back. There's a little bit of interest, but that's just not there. As I say, it's Pats against Shells on TV on Friday night. There's obviously going to be a huge interest because of Damien Duff being there. I'm surprised nobody else has picked up more matches, more of that Air deal, which again maybe says a lot that commercially maybe it's not seen as being viable, but it does feel that there's a greater connection with the League of Ireland for people around the country than there's ever been. Like you mentioned, that Jordan Flores goal, like, COVID couldn't have come at a worse time. Like, that night in Tally, you've got 6,000-7,000 people. You've got one of the greatest League of Ireland goals of all time. You've got Jack Byrne scoring the winner. You've got a proper rivalry, it felt, between Dundalk and Shamrock Rovers. And I think that was Rovers' last home game before COVID kicked in. Now, they've sold over 3,000 season tickets. Shells have sold a huge amount of season tickets. Pats, Bows, they're all selling massive amounts of tickets. So there is momentum there behind it at the moment.
Yeah, and look,
and there's things that outsiders need to do. There's things that clubs need to do themselves as well. Like, you know, Dalymount, the redevelopment still hasn't happened. Do Shells really want to leave Talca Park? Like, are they fully positioned to capitalise on the interest that Damien Duff will bring? It's hard to know. Like, I think they've made massive improvements. All of these clubs are, but like, they need investment, and maybe this League of Ireland strategy where they're doing the audit of the grounds will see investment come so that Talca is redeveloped fully if Shell stay. Dalymount's redeveloped. That, you know, families are happy to go to these grounds and know it'll be an enjoyable experience like you would get at a good quality GAA or rugby ground.
Yeah. All right. Look, we're going to leave the League of Ireland chat there. Twitter Spaces from 10 o'clock. Just click the button on the top. Make sure you're following at Off the Ball, and then as we go live, you'll automatically be aware of it. Once you in the app, it pops up at the top. You can't miss it. You just click that button with all the people whose faces you know. Make sure you're signed in with a name as opposed to JSW 82 74 69. And you know.
I'll tell you about Stephen Bradley.
Don't.
You're not getting on.
Yeah, I would listen to that.
and yeah, right.